I think we'll brief you guys a bit about the agenda before we get started. Hope you guys had fun networking just now and talking and meeting new people. Today we have a very exciting panel discussion that will happen very soon as soon as we get the slides up. And searching Texas. And we'll have a small discussion with the audience later, Q&A. And after that, it's just more time to get to know new people. Is everybody settled down? All right. Okay, so welcome to Writing, Interneting, and Existing in the Age of AI. Today's panel will cover a lot about how we, will be preserving our humanity in a time where AI is becoming much more intertwined with our everyday life. And I think to kick off the event, we have a little game, fun little game to play with all of you guys. Would I be able to go to the next slide, please? So the game is called AI or Not. And we're going to be showing you guys a series of different pictures, and I want you guys to take a guess at whether the image or the thing shown on the screen was AI generated or not. We'll start with something relatively easy. Can we get the next? Okay. Oh no! Sorry. we showed the wrong one. Okay. So let's skip that one since we already saw the answer. Could we go to the next one, please? Next one, please. Okay, so these two, which one of these do you think is AI generated and which one is not? So if you guys think the jacket on the right is AI generated, please raise your hand. The right? Higher. Okay. And what about the jacket on the left? So it's a pretty even split. Kian, what's the correct answer? Okay, so the orange jacket is AI generated and the other one is not. Can we go to the next question, please? All right, this one is a little bit harder because the details are super intricate. Which one of you guys think the picture on the left is AI generated? The left? And which one of you guys think the picture on the right is AI generated? So there's a lot of people who didn't vote. For people who didn't vote, are you guys unsure? Could we see the answer, please? Okay, so the embroidery is AI generated. Could we get the next question up, please? Are you guys able to see? This is 2 rooms, 2 interior designs. Which one of these do you think is AI generated? Okay. Who thinks the picture on the right is AI generated? And who thinks the picture on the left is AI generated? So I think more people think the right than the left. Can we see the answer? So both of these pictures are generated. And it's getting really good these days. This one, rooster on the right, how many of you guys think the rooster on the right is AI generated? And what about the rooster on the left? Okay, so more people think left and right. What's the correct answer? All right, I think we got this one right. Next one. This one's tough, right? Who thinks the right? Who thinks the left? Who thinks both? Who thinks neither? A couple of people think neither. What's the correct answer on this one? Oh, okay. So the people are correct. I think we're running out pretty soon. What's the next? Okay, this one is real tough. This one is a collection of humans. Maybe you guys can just shout out the people or the numbers that you think are AI. Anybody else have other guesses?
Bottom row.
Okay. And then a lot of people said 9 as well. All right. Could we hear the answers, please? Okay. So actually, the entire bottom row are real people with amazing camera quality, and the top row is generative faces. It's AI. So I think most people guessed below as AI, but we got this one wrong. I think next question. This one's a little bit hard to read, so maybe we skip these few. And then this one's impossible to read. So let's skip this one as well. Okay. Would I be able to get the clicker over here? And then could we skip to David's slide for HackerNoon, please? All right, so before we start the panel introduction, would love to pass the mic to David Smook, who is CEO of HackerNoon. He is here today to share with you about the amazing team and business of HackerNoon, the host of this wonderful event. So I will pass the stage back to David, and then we'll be able to meet our wonderful guests here tonight.
Assess. Hello. Do I even need this? Hey guys, wanted to thank you for coming out and tell you a few minutes about what HackerNoon is before we get to the main event. I've been working with my partner Ling for about 10 years. This is our website, and we're on Wikipedia, so that means we're real people and we're not AI. I was recently pictured in the AI photos right before that. So we've had 300 million people visit our website in the history of the last 10, 12 years. We've published about 50,000 authors. One of them's here today, the Frog Society. So doesn't go by his real name, which is something we do for a lot of people and to get ideas out there. We leverage a lot of AI within HackerNoon, which is an interesting challenge, as now AI is catching up to humans in a lot of what we can do, but a lot of what we can't do. AI can't do a lot of everything. So I'm not too scared about what's going to happen to the future of the internet, but I'm a little scared, if I'm being honest. And we've published, we've served about 5,000 serving ads for technology companies and publishing their content. How we grew is between journalism and social media. Social media where anyone can publish anything and there's no barrier at all, which is very tough to tell what is true, what is important, what matters. And journalism, there's a ton of barriers of how to get there. You know, you're building a lot of cool stuff here, and a lot of the bigger sites maybe aren't talking about that. So there is a sweet spot between complete openness of publishing anything and not knowing what's real and important, and journalism where the sources aren't actually publishing the story. So we found that if we help the sources tell a better story, we're able to host and distribute a lot of amazing blog posts. And that's what we credit the growth of HackerNoon to. And we have a pretty interesting structure where it's Ling and I at the top as the top shareholders of the company and the whole board and the whole C-suite. And we have about a dozen employees and about 1,300 shareholders, published a lot of writers, and just being a true internet company and trying to scale up something of where I think one of the coolest things about the internet is you can have a small team and have a massive impact. The idea of 15 years ago, you have to have your own server. Okay, now you can still pay Google or pay whoever and host, but it's still, how do you build an audience? And then most people that build it, they build it on social media and they're building on someone else's land. So it's the trade-off of can you build your own land and build it up and have a system of a sustainable economy on your own environment, not just be adherent to someone's rules on their own platform. So those are the trade-offs that we've kind of grown and shared. And in our first $10 million that we made, we had investment a little bit, about a third, and then we've made it mostly in revenue. And we were one of the first 10 companies in America to do equity crowdfunding. So literally put the link on the top of our site, say, do you want to own shares in this site, and sell them. And so that is really what grew our first initial team beyond me and Ling. And that was really cool to change people that value this site into shareholders. And some of them are pretty notable. Gary Tan and Alexis Ohanian and Arweave are kind of more of the internet famous one, but we're so old. Alexis Ohanian was a shareholder before he was even married to Serena Williams, back when he was just the Reddit guy. So we have been around, and I think there is a very cool thing about building sustainably, and 2x every year is a very interesting way to grow. And I would, these are some of the customers that helped us get there and continue to help us get there. All these companies have bought ads or published blog posts on HackerNoon. One of our use cases of AI is translations. And it's something that AI has gotten as good at humans in a lot of, not quite as good if you're saying it's literature, but if you're saying, can I reach a broader audience by translating this content into something else? AI is very good. And so we do. Our Vietnam audience is, about 15th in, our country. So if you haven't heard of HackerNoon before today, that's fine, and it's something that we're trying to become more international. But this is our Vietnamese homepage, and, when you publish on HackerNoon, it can be, all your posts can get translated into 75 different languages. This clicker is a little bit of a lag, but when I think about what we're doing, we're blogging our way through the AI boom. We're learning just like everybody else. There's not, you could have a strategy, but the tides are changing so drastically that just writing about it is the most impactful way we've contributed to what AI is on the internet. We've published over 15,000 posts. And then in my founder role, a lot of times I end up being a product manager, and it's how do we make our content management system AI assisted? And how we don't want to replace humans, we want to empower them. And I think that's a theme you'll see today, and just people that are doing it well. Lots of headlines. You can sign up, free newsletters on AI from HackerNoon. And how we're making our content management system AI assisted, a couple examples. For bloggers, we have AI as kind of your writing assistant on the side. Multi-platform publishing, so when you say, hey, when you submit to all the different social networks, some of them are different content lengths, some of them are different tag lengths, some of them want images, some don't. So those little things of customizing how you share. And for editors, we're scoring all the content and saying, what is the first piece I should read? It matters when they submitted and who they submitted, but also having AI read it and tell you which one they think is best so that our humans can start editing the highest priority content first. And then for readers, personalization, recommending stuff. This is happening on platforms across the whole web. So if you want to get your content heard, these are a lot of the popular job titles that we publish. But you can go to HackerNoon, upper right-hand corner, start blogging, submit it. Within 3 or 4 days, a human will review it and go through our distribution channels. So lots of big companies are reading our site and our newsletter. It'd be great to publish some new people. And let's get into the main event. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David. And thank you, everybody, for crushing that game just now. A quick reminder of our agenda. We're about to head into the panel discussion, which will be about 45 minutes. We're breaking down some of the top headlines in AI, as HackerNoon is a publishing company after all. We have a little bit of a Q&A section, and then we have just open connection time. So throughout the event, there's going to be a QR code where you can send in questions, and then we'll answer those questions at the end. All right, so the topic of today's discussion is really centered about how to preserve what makes us in the age of AI. And I think that there have been a lot of panel events where we talk about AI, but so many discussions on how AI increases productivity or efficiency, or how it allows us to scale our businesses, but not as many discussions about how to really preserve the things that do make us human, like our creativity or the way that we connect with one another, the way that knowledge sharing or things like that change as AI becomes more integrated into our life. So those are the kinds of conversations we're going to be having today. Would love to introduce you guys to the panelists for today. Once again, we have David and Ling from HackerNoon. We have Andrew from Saigon AI and Stephen from Lumiere. So maybe I would love to have everybody introduce themselves really quickly to our audience.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ling. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of HackerNoon, and I'm also David's wife. And my proudest title is we are parents to 3 young children, ages 6 months to 8 years. So today, you might see my baby at some point because she's still breastfeeding. So she might be around here when it's time for her to eat. But today, I'm going to come in with this AI discussion about humanity with the angle of both a tech leader, somebody in the education space before working for HackerNoon, as well as a concerned parent of children of different ages. So hopefully I'll be able to offer you a more humane look and not just like tech, what to do with AI.
Hey everyone, my name is Andrew, or Xin chào mọi người. Very nice to be here, a pleasure, an honor for you. I'm one of the founders of Saigon AI, operating here for about 9 years. And prior to that, I was technical founder for 8 different technology companies in the United States. So I've got a bit of experience on the entrepreneurial side. Also, I've now moved over to the academic side where I'm an AI researcher with the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. So I have a bit of the educational ecology and AI perspective all mixed up with some entrepreneurial stuff. So happy to give some opinions about what scares me about AI and what gets me excited about AI and everything in the middle.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen. First of all, my biggest title is I'm just like a big fan of Saigon and Vietnam. I would say that's my biggest identity, but specific for this conversation, I have maybe 2 or 3 identities that are relevant. One is I run a company. I run a very dorky, nerdy education company. We work with high school students. We have about 80 team members, work with about 4,000 students each year. And we do a lot of AI agents within that. Second is that I write a lot online, as we can talk about my writing mainly on LinkedIn. And then I also, as a side thing, it's kind of random, I do stand-up comedy with Saigon Theo. And so I can talk a little bit from a creative perspective what that looks like. These are very unrelated, by the way, so my life is kind of a shit show, as you might expect. That's it.
Thank you, guys. And my name is Vicky. I run a production company in Saigon. We do comics and animation, so we turn webtoons into video comics. And then I think the perspective that I'll be adding here is from the creative world. How are people sort of using AI, or how are the reactions towards this? Awesome. So I'd love to just sort of have a temperature check with everybody. Would you guys mind taking part in this quick poll about just your general thoughts about AI's impact in general, if you're leaning towards positive or leaning towards negative. So there's optimistic, AI will make life better overall, neutral, and pessimistic.
This is AI, right? Oh my God. I love AI.
So it seems like mostly leaning optimistic and neutral.
Very few pessimistic.
Very few pessimistic. Maybe you guys will be a little bit more pessimistic after starting. All right, I think this is an interesting vote. And then maybe the next question, really interested in how everybody's using AI right now on a day-to-day basis. So it's still same link, but this is a word cloud. So maybe type in 2 to 3 words about where you use it the most. I wonder if anybody will type AI girlfriend. Sorry, this is how you use it and not when. So I see virtual assistant, email, work, designing, creating content, calculating things, school, proofreading. Answer girlfriend. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Streamlining ideas, brainstorming. Oh, okay. Let's give it about 30 more seconds. Oh. All right, this is really interesting. Oh. Seems like people are using AI on a daily basis, multiple times a day, with brainstorming, research, a lot of writing and content creation centric tasks. Does anything strike you guys as surprising?
I mean, someone must be using it for porn. You know what I'm saying? This does not feel. Not me. Anyways, let's.
Clearly, they're just thinking that their relationships, they can get insight from AI, like how to answer a girlfriend, dating advice.
How many of you guys have ever used ChatGPT for dating advice? Two people. All right. Let's go back to the slides. So we will definitely be covering aspects of these in today's panel, particularly related to content creation as well as research. And I think a good place to start us off is, thinking about if we're preserve our humanity in the age of AI, what is it really that we're trying to preserve? What are the things that make us human? And we did a little bit of brainstorming. We settled on a couple of topics. So first is connection and emotional depth. We're able to feel empathy and we're able to form genuine relationships with one another. Our creativity and our creativity in a way that has meaning, not just generation or remixing. The way we pass down knowledge, education, and then how we as humans like to build stuff. So we build civilizations, companies, products, we experiment and we create. And how does all of this change once AI is added to the equation? Boom. All right. So the way that we're going to be doing this is that we're going to be analyzing a couple of headlines, some of them from lovely HackerNoon, and then using that as a jumping off discussion point. So the first sort of bucket is connection and emotional depth. There are two relevant headlines here. One is about a story about how a young boy fell in love with an AI chatbot called Character AI. And as he fell in love with this chatbot, the chatbot recommended him to take his life. He became very depressed because he was withdrawn from the people around him and only was talking to this chatbot, and how his mother eventually ended up suing that AI company. And then on the other hand is a headline about how Gen Z, or the younger generation, is simply turning to ChatGPT more for emotional support and on-demand therapy. So I'd love to hear from the panelists, what thoughts strike you as you read these two headlines. Maybe we'll start with Ling. You're a mother. What are your thoughts if your child were to grow up in this kind of...
Yeah, I actually picked out this headline because that was all I could think about back in 2024 when it happened. I think the simplest way I think about AI problems, and I think a lot about AI problems in a daily basis, is that it doesn't really create any of the existing societal problems that we have, but it certainly worsens and exacerbates all of the social ills that we currently have. So looking at the pandemic of loneliness and disconnection that we have among young people, it started to me as a mother from a young age. When you not connect with your mom or your dad, when all you can do at a cafe is to look at the iPad, and then let the adults talk, then it seeps through into your day-to-day. And when you grow older, that's all you know. You don't really understand what real connection feels like. You don't really understand how to actually be a human. So now let's look back at the story. Guy, why he goes to Character AI in the first place. He was 11 years old, probably like most teenagers, wanting to have friends. That's one of our most fundamental human needs, is that we want connection, we want people to hear us out, we want people to validate our emotions. And what the AI is very good at, research has shown that, is it's very good at repeating yourself to you, but in a more flattering way. So Character AI and Vicky could tell me more about this because she actually tried it out, created hyper-realistic characters. We can think of the phenomenon of waifus, which Japanese people know, and people who understand Japanese culture, which AI girlfriends, our girlfriends that serve only the purpose of emotional connection with these teenage boys. And so this is just the extension of that. Extension of waifus, extension of fanfics, extension of things that are very real that these teenagers need. I don't think there's an answer that AI could offer in this case, unfortunately. I think AI could only, like the same people that are making these AI chatbots are the people who created the pandemic of disconnection in the first place. The same people, Zuckerberg, for example, he was the one who created social media, and now what he's doing, he's paying $100 million to get OpenAI employees to work for Meta. Sam Altman, he's trying to create his own social network. So these are the same group of people that have started, which I call the original sin of the internet. It's created by Web 2, and only made worse by AI. So that's my 2 cents on it. I don't know if...
Yeah, thank you. Emotion, let's just admit that emotion is a difficult thing to understand. There's a reason we have social sciences to help us to learn how we think, how we respond, how we grow up. We've been studying this since the beginning of time. The interesting thing about AIs that are trying to kind of pull on your heartstrings relational is that they're not coming from a science, from a psychology perspective. They're coming from an entertainment perspective. And the problem with that is that it leans a little more toward like the social media, where it's about trying to support. It's like putting candy on what you want to see. The reason why you take 15 pictures of yourself and you only select the one to go to Facebook, there's a reason you do that. Because you want to get the likes. You're wanting to get a response. It's not necessarily real life. It's fabricated. It's a bit of a mask. And so I think AI kind of makes that a lot stronger because they're building the AIs to give you what they think you want, but because they don't have the science, there's no way to measure and know when they're giving you the things that are bad, that are not good for you. And kids especially, 11 years old, he doesn't know any better. Doesn't know to recognize when things start to go the wrong direction. So I think we play with fire. We're playing with fire because these aren't doctors approving content. This is just another form of entertainment that can be addictive and challenging.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask a question actually of everyone? I'm curious. Who here has like asked ChatGPT? It's kind of a simple question, or some AI about like some relational, even could be like a friendship situation. Maybe just like raise your hand if you have. So we have one. So you guys at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some. I definitely have. Who's had a, and if you're comfortable sharing, who's had a therapist before here? Has anyone worked? I worked with a therapist. Has anyone worked with a therapist before? A few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So for me, I'm really interested. I think that I'm relatively positive about AI in most cases, except for existential threat of us humans dying. I mean, that sounds terrible. But I think I'm quite keen to see. I found that AI is a very thoughtful companion for thinking through difficult problems in relationships. Like even when I think about, like Ashley raised her hand a second ago, like with relationships, your girlfriend sends you a message, you're pissed, you want to send something back, and then you ask AI, and AI is so fucking high EQ, and it's like, you should probably validate her experiences and reflect on your own. I'm like, fuck, I should have done that. And so I think on average, AI is actually higher EQ than me and most of my team members. And I imagine young kids will grow up in an environment, depending on the incentives, whether the incentive is to keep you online or the incentive is to create a companion, where actually they'll be surrounded by very high EQ AI, which will push them in the same way I think someone has a therapist is often pushed to reflect on their experience a bit more. My guess is you'll have a generation that'll be a bit better actually at interacting, though maybe they'll require AI to kind of check in on how they would approach it. So I'm actually not so pessimistic about the emotional side of things.
I'm much more pessimistic on the emotional side.
I love that.
I think like a growth strategy is to like be a psycho fan, and it agrees like strong opinions loosely held as a reason Silicon Valley and Amazon grew. It has a lot of value, but whenever you have the entire power of the internet and you can completely 180 your opinion on, hey, no, do it the other way. No, have the opposite opinion, and right away it just flips, and you're just, oh, it just agreed with me and flipped. Well, it agreed with me because I told it to. So I think what's going to happen with the bots is they're going to get a little less psychophanic and a little more like Google and more like the what is true in the world versus what is true in my back and forth with my chatbot. So I don't know. I think there is a growth strategy happening around pleasing the user, and that overly means that the user is going to get the information they want versus the information they should be hearing.
Add one more thing to that. I think the AI models that are out now, the dominant ones, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, the engineers have worked really hard to make sure that they respond to you very positive. They try to be very, very positive. So that means they're gating some information. right? That they're holding back some information from you because they want to say things in a nice way. But let's also say that for young people's perspectives, why was social media so strong and powerful for them? Because it gave them a chance to hide behind an app where you can act like an extrovert, even though technically you're an introvert.
Thanks, guys. I think we had some really varied opinions here. Speakers were worried about the ability of children or people who grew up in this age to deeply connect with others, and others felt like maybe people who grew up with AI are able to connect better. So I went and I created a chat character AI account, and I think what's jarring to me is how easy it is for anybody who has an email, regardless of their age, to be able to, access these very explicit chats. And in these chats, 90% of the characters on Character AI are modeled after some sort of famous person or a fictional character where people might have a crush on that character. And all the stories that are on or being chatted with, role played on this site are actually romantic stories. So there's a very real chance that these kids are forming real emotions and having real connections with these people that don't exist. And there's somebody who's making that chat bot and saying, this is the storyline, this is the way that this character responds. And there are, specific AI that are always very nice to you, regardless of how cruel or how harsh you are to them. Having these agents easily so available to, young children, I think will really shape the way that they interact with others negatively. So I think the question that's posed here is that how do we avoid, becoming emotionally numb or disconnected when, AI is able to mimic the emotional labor of humans, where if you yell at an AI or if you're very, strict or direct with it, it won't react with you the same way, as we would if we yelled at a sibling or a teammate. How do we preserve that emotional or empathy in humans?
You know what makes us human is humans are hard to predict, and relationships are so rocky, and it feels challenging, and you want to rip your head off sometimes when it comes to dealing with your partners, even if partners that you've been with for years and years and years. Even your own parents, you don't understand sometimes, and your children will mimic whatever you're trying to do every single day. I'm speaking as a parent. So what makes us human is not that we are always perfectly pleasant and perfectly responsive and perfectly able to respond to whatever the child says. What makes us human is actually ability to repair. So basically, if we do something wrong, we fuck up, we say, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have yelled. I shouldn't have done that. I'm just worried with this mimicking, the keyword here is mimic, with the rise of AI kind of looking a little bit like human, but the human that you have absolutely no friction with. Literally just say whatever and it will agree with you, it will yell at you, it will do something that you ask us it will make us pretty much like, how we still have to go to the gym, even though humans basically don't have to, well, humans as in white collar workers, all of us right here, don't have to farm or field, the crop anymore. But we still go to the gym because we still want to develop muscles. We still cook, even though we can go to the restaurants because we want to be able to, know where our ingredients come from and understand our food. I'm worried with relying too much on AI, we're removing literally all barriers of what makes us work for relationships and work to become better and work at repairing, with our children, with our partner, with our parents, and just become this society of people, of echo chamber, of people looking for agreement and looking for validation and looking to just selfies the whole time. Everybody say, it's like me, you, and a bunch of 100 AI saying how great you look. I'm worrying what's gonna happen. You know, Zuckerberg, sorry, I mentioned him a lot, but he's kind of like the lord of everything we're talking about here. So he already kind of mentioned this in one of his recent podcast interviews. He said, you know that like a typical human only has 15, sorry, like needs 15 friends, but a US adult only has 3 friends, right? You know what he's trying to kind of hint at is, well, in the future, we only have 3 friends, we need 15 friends, you know? What about 12 AI friends that gonna just fulfill all of your emotional needs and all of whatever you didn't get from your partner and your parents and your children? That's what I'm worried a lot about. Yeah, by the way, I'm like a super pessimistic side when it comes to AI if you haven't caught on.
I caught on. Yeah. This is really interesting. I think emotionally numb and disconnected, they can easily be 2 different directions here. Because I think the more disconnected we are, the more we use services like AI's emotional support or other things, I think we separate from society. But actually, I have a feeling that it makes your emotional swings stronger. So I would maybe not even call it numb, all right? But I would actually say that it means that you deal with emotions a lot less well. And the interesting thing is, I would say you kind of need to make some decisions about what's important about life to you. I think most of us are old enough, got a few friends, and you know which friends are good friends, and you know which friends are not good friends, and you know why, right? And so ask yourself, am I doing the things that I like that my good friends are doing? Am I that kind of a person? And actually kind of compare it and say, am I getting the same thing from an AI? Myself, it's AI culture or dependence. And I think it's AI is doesn't really understand their emotion. It's just trained really well to act like it. So at the end of the day, you've got something very fake. So, but if you bring something authentic and it's only being responded by fake, it kind of maybe headed for a crash. I don't know. That sounds really pessimistic and dark like you.
Eh, Hello? To me, the key word is disconnected labor. When I read this question, it's like, what is our work? And if you process, it would change how you build it. Like me, I'm building a lot of small sites and landing pages and simple users. And hello? Hello? It's, hello? For my process of building, it used to be a lot more designer, 2 front-end developers, 2 back-end engineers, and I'm writing a lot of what the experience is in the copy. And now the same thing is much more done with 1 designer, 1 back-end developer, and then me in the middle. And so I think, like, when I think about loving the process of what I'm doing, I'm building a page and I'm going back and forth and I'm making that page better to explain an idea. And I like doing that, and I like spending my time doing that. And if it's now 3 people in the room instead of 5, I still love the process. So, I think what page should exist. I think it's the human that chooses what the purpose of the page is, and AI is not going to replace me and do that. And in your own work, if you love the process and you're cutting out some roles, if you still love the process and what you're building, your labor can be very connected and meaningful. And frankly, the competition is doing it. And if you're building the same thing with 5 people and they're building it with 3, well, you're going to have to make more money with the thing you build to compete and be equal. So those are the kind of the trade-offs I see in my day-to-day life to make my labor more connected.
Awesome, guys. So I think the next topic that we sort of want to touch on, and also something that people brought up a lot in the in the word cloud was people used AI a lot for research. So we have a couple of interesting headlines. Two of them are publishing copyright cases where New York Times sued OpenAI for scraping its articles to train the way that ChatGPT writes content. And I think the fear behind this is that one day people will stop reading traditional newspapers or news sites and just input into ChatGPT what's happening today. The same way that we're saying, let's Google this right now, we're going to be saying, let's ChatGPT this later on. And the second headline here is also the judge's ruling on Anthropic, which is the company behind Claude. They used books to train their AIs, and the judges ruled that training AI on books, text in books, is legal. However, illegally downloading books to train AI is not legal. I think some tangentially related headlines here would be related to research. So before we had like where we get our knowledge from, here is how who work in research industries feel about using AI. The text is a little bit small, but I think if we zoom in, the insight here is that AI's footprint were found on about 13.5% of scientific papers. So a lot of researchers right now are using AI to both write and help with their research process. Another survey found that about 37% have used or are willing to use AI to write the first draft, and up to 71% have used or are willing to use it for editing. So with everybody who said that you guys are using AI for research right now, Stephen, you run a research centric education company. Andrew, you are a researcher yourself. Really curious to hear your perspective on how does education shift as AI's ability to outperform humans, to replace certain aspects or replace certain parts in the knowledge creation process. How do you think that impacts us? And
see if this one works. All right. So I often describe to people that language models, ChatGPT, Claude, etc., like kind of like a big bucket of Legos. And so you can do amazing things with Legos, but you cannot invent new Lego pieces with your bucket of Legos. And so the interesting thing is, if you're using what's in the bucket that is the data, it's very difficult to come up with original ideas that are not already invented and recycled. And so that's my perspective on this, is like even Elon Musk was talking about Grok, saying their push is in a couple years that it should be making its own scientific discoveries in physics and sciences. Well, they really need to beat the cognition problem, so that they're working not with a big bucket of Legos, but they actually are working with something new. If you've only got Legos, then no, the scientific discoveries aren't going to come. So that's kind of a big challenge.
So I think it's like a really interesting question. So for me, I have a distinct perspective on education, that education has two purposes, or really three core purposes. And one is going to be changed. The other two will stay very similar. So one is about learning. So one is about gaining skills, developing behaviors that make you better at doing something, like maybe programming something. A second is about status signaling. So people get educated because it allows them to signal in a competitive market of other humans, hey, I'm worthwhile, I went to this school, I know this language. It says something about me in relation to you, and that gives me some status that's allocated. And the third thing is that it creates community and identity with other people. So I think education as a function of learning is going to change quite significantly, because you are much better off. Like right now, actually, I'm in the process of acquiring a company in the UK It is so fun for me to work with AI to write like an SPA agreement, to write our like letter of intent to acquire the company. It's teaching me the tax code in the UK. It's like incredible. But the AI is not going to allow me to know the person who I'm trying to buy the company from, who's my friend from a few years ago. So I think you're going to see a big, you're going to see a diversion in education where education, which is created for the goal of learning, which not most education is not, by the way, that we consume, that will be changed pretty dramatically. But education for service of status signaling, for community building, those will stay quite constant. So you're going to still have schools, you'll still have universities. I think research itself will probably survive for some period of time, but likely you will eventually get AI that is probably better at doing research. But it will look similar, I think, and like my guess is like 5-10 years, education will look similar, but actually the process of learning will be quite different. So a little bit how I see education.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be in the education space, so this is highly, highly interesting to me. This is one area that I'm actually slightly more optimistic about AI. I think the best use case of AI I can think of right now in this space is personalized tutoring. So in the case of, I volunteer a lot at my children's school. I used to run a summer camp for 10 plus years. The biggest problem with formal training and formal education is uniformity and just treating every student the same. Treating everybody has to be the same age, studying the same thing, sitting on the same table. Like if you're in a Vietnamese class, then you have to be extremely uniform. You even have to raise your hands the extremely same way. So in the case of AI for personalized tutoring, it actually could help with children with dyslexia, ADHD, people with special needs, and actually a couple of educational companies that I know of that are doing big, like AI Moves are, what's that company? The Khan Academy. They are one of the first movers in bringing AI-assisted personalized tutoring to more students in the world. I think that's fantastic. That's a great use of, because again, talking about what is the biggest strength of AI that I've mentioned before, it's agreeing with you. It's just whatever you say, it will say, I understand. That must be such a hard problem. Let's see what we're gonna do with this problem, right? Just the simple act of having someone empathize with how hard math is will make a student more motivated to go on. I mean, I see that in my own children, most of parenting to me, it's just literally repeating back what my daughter says in a more empathetic way. So I think personalized tutoring, that I'm very, very gung-ho on. The cons, though, is, I don't know if you guys read, there's this article in Chronicle of Higher Education or something that look into the behavior of college students reading in the past 15 years. It doesn't look good, guys. It's like this. Basically, the length at which we can consume content, like just like literally reading of a paper or a book, and our ability to comprehend a book or a piece of text has gradually decreased even without AI boom for the past 15 years. So I don't think AI is going to help with that. Kind of like what you say about the Lego blocks. Like we're not making new brain cells here over here with the use of, hey, TLDR, this article for me, right? Like no. So in my personal practice, for my own brain and for my own good, whenever I have a piece of content, no matter how rough the idea and how imperfect, I try to write it myself, not looking at anything whatsoever, not Google, not ChatGPT, not anything, just literally coming from my own head. Then after I have about 80% of the draft, actually the imperfections are what make it sound like me. Then I feed it into ChatGPT and say, okay, like I'm actually trying to write this for LinkedIn. So can you make it a little bit more like LinkedIn-y and less like Facebook-y? So using it for like modes and medium and or I run a podcast on the side with my daughter. I don't know the different length between Apple Podcast and Spotify podcast description. So I say, make it sound more like an Apple description rather than a Spotify description from my own work in my, from my own mouth. That has helped. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons education-wise when it comes to this. Sure.
I think when we look at the history of the internet and what was potentially promised to us, thinking about it like, oh, this could be the true Library of Alexandria and all of the knowledge is actually available to us. That's something that isn't lost on me that my parents' generation didn't have anything like it. So, but now you say, okay, we got so used to searching in Google and the top 10 links and trying to deep dive. So changing that format to saying, go back and forth and it can do 10, 12 follow-up, 100 follow-up questions, and you can actually truly learn how to write a different type of document or learn about something is really exciting. The stuff we started about with saying for therapy or for lonely children, it's very scary. And but to say I want to learn how to solve a medical issue in my back pain, that's very exciting. To say, how do I, cook a certain type of chicken? There's areas where you can just keep asking it questions, and it really has downloaded the entire internet, and we're getting closer to accessing some form of a collective consciousness, and it has all the academic research we've ever published. So in that part, I'm very optimistic that if you want to keep learning, it's now way easier to do than it's ever been. And that makes me optimistic for the future of the internet.
Yeah, I think the next question is also really related to everything we talked about so far. One of the reasons why I think you guys are able to utilize ChatGPT effectively and efficiently is because as we went through the traditional schooling process, we learned how to think critically. Will that still be the case for children who are growing up or being educated in an environment where now they can just go and chat GPT pretty much everything that's on their homework, an essay assignment? They never had to go through the process of sitting down and writing it. And then I think the bigger question here is how do we avoid becoming incapable of, critical thinking or losing that muscle when we delegate so much of our thought process out? So do my first draft for me, or how should I get this started? What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I would start with, we all did get worse at math when the calculator came out. It happened, our brains stopped working, and the gym for the mind is something that a lot of companies are going to, I think, build and be very successful building. You are going to have, if you want to keep that type of critical thinking and logic ability, it has to be baked into your day-to-day. And just like walking and go to gym, work our body, we are going to have to really put in dedicated effort and focus into working our minds.
I think, I don't think it really matters. To be honest, I don't think it matters. Who cares? To me, this question is very similar to the question of how do we avoid becoming unable to remember poetry for a Mandarin scholar in 1908 Vietnam? It's at that age we're dude, who cares? Why does that matter? Why is that the question we're asking? Don't you see this amazing world we're living in? So to me, critical thinking, maybe if you think critical thinking is this is all human judgment, then okay, yeah, sure, it matters. But if critical thinking is just how do I structure a problem, I think you'll probably have a new word. I don't know what it's going to be, but maybe something like taste function or something where you're able to assess, is this good? Is this what I want? Is this what I'm trying to achieve? And you're going to have these 4-year-olds now who are 34 and 30 years who are going to be so good at that taste function, and we're going to be fucking idiots. We're going to be let me try to build it out myself. So to me, this question doesn't get at the future of thinking, which I do think is going to be very important. It's not that we're not going to think, but maybe the idea of critical thinking of breaking down a problem into its component parts, maybe that just doesn't matter as much as it does in 2025.
So we can argue about that because I disagree on a lot of those things. I think for me, my understanding of being human, I learn a lot more whenever I try something and I fail than whenever I try something and it just works out. And so I think the reason why people are so desperate and hungry to use more AI is because it really reduces your chance of failure. So if you're running away from things that will teach you the experience of doing it wrong, then you kind of have a more narrow perspective on life. It's kind of the way I think about that. And I would say that some of the things that I learned earliest as a programmer was like accidentally, removing all the tables from the production database. It like really sucked, and I got in a lot of trouble. But it so totally learned a lesson in me that I was like triple careful before I ever do anything. And I've caught so many mistakes because I remember, good Lord, don't ever do that again. So it changed my behavior from that experience. If ChatGPT just told me the right way and I got it right, I have none of that experience. So there's challenge to that, and critical thinking, I think, at the root of it is my ability to look at a situation and think creatively about what I'm going to do with that situation. Do I have to solve that problem? Do I have to feel a certain way? Do I have to try to change conditions? It's like, it's not just a task, it's not just a technical thing, but it might also be like I'm a musician as well. Maybe it's, given the difficult day I had, I'm going to change the song I'm working on to be something different. And I have to reflect on experience as well as looking at the critical things in front of me in order to respond in a way that belongs to me, that isn't necessarily somebody else's.
Yeah. I think that's fair, but I just want to offer I think it's more fun when panels disagree anyways, so it's funny when you about to fight. I think it's the difference between being what's his name? Jiro dreams of sushi, that one sushi guy. He's obsessed with making the perfect sushi rice. And you're like, oh my God, I love that. That guy gets how to make sushi. And then you look at the founder of Chipotle or the founder of McDonald's. That guy doesn't know a fucking thing about making the most perfect sushi rice, but it doesn't matter. He's really good at building a company that can build a lot of hamburgers. That's the skill set he's good at. So I think it's fair. If you want to be the Jiro dreams of sushi rice guy, you can drop all the tables you want, But I don't think it's gonna matter. I guess I'm being kind of facetious here just because it's more fun. But I do think that you're going to have a group who's going to be the kids are going to crush it in the next 10 years, are going to be using AI in ways that we find are very interesting and novel and leverage them a lot. And there's going to be an entirely new skill set that's difficult for us to imagine or think about, that the kids who are good at that are just going to crush. And definitely there's still going to be a place for Jiro, and that's why he's so beautiful and we care about him. We're like, wow, it's amazing. But that place is a different skill set than the person who wants to, really change the world, I think. So I think that's where you're going to, see a little bit of a change when it comes to this.
So I get your point as well, and we're not going to hug or anything like that. It's you're still fighting, but I think it depends on what segment of humanity you're going to belong in. I think for the general masses, exactly what you said is exactly right? But you're always going to have the 1%, 5%, 10%, whoever's the really creative thinkers that just are completely outside of the box. If they don't have access to doing it the old way, then humanity begins to die, right? It's kind of my deep striking point. But for the majority of people, maybe mostly unnecessary. And I agree with that.
I think at the back of my mind, this whole conversation makes me think again about Zuckerberg. Sorry. But who gets to call balls and strikes and be the arbiters of truth in this whole debate that we're talking about? Again, those same guys that, do you guys remember back in the 2010s and the social media is so not lost on us and everybody was so wow, the world is going to be so much better and everybody's going to be globally connected and Facebook is great, there's no scandal, no Frances Howard, nothing of the sort. It was a different world. It was exactly some great people is going to leverage social media this way and some other people the rising tide lifts all whatever. And then here we are 10, 20 years later, and I don't think the world was made a better place by the advent of those, well, at least not in the hands of the guys that are currently controlling social media. I simply don't think there's a pandemic of among girls, suicidal thoughts, depression, body dysmorphia, and just all the sort of problems just by simply using Instagram. And among boys, porn, gaming, also depression, suicidal thoughts, and all of that. And I think we have driven our children literally to the corners by underprotecting them in the online world, and because of that, we're overprotecting them in the real world. And now if you go into all of the playgrounds and all of the cafes, at least in Vietnam, everybody's staring at their phone like a zombie, scrolling social media. I don't think this is the world that we thought back in the early 2010s that they were trying to promise. Now, these are the same people, again, that are making the promise of AI, like, some like great group of really good kids gonna like leverage this and that. Like, I'm just worried. Just look at the way they treat their own children and they teach their own children. None of their 3 children are using their own products. That's how you know that they don't really believe what they pitch.
There is a design hope there, though. Like, why we got so locked into 2D screens and phones and I think AI is maybe technologically it is smart enough that we can maybe hopefully make a UX leap where we're actually interacting with technology more, not on the screen and just our voice. So I think in really the next like 2 to 5 years, you're going to see a lot of products kind of emerge where we're talking to the AI without using the screen. And that could be a very positive benefit to just reducing total screen time while making it a little more interactive and a little more like, what do I want? What information do I want? Okay, I don't want to be pulled into the next doom scroll and the next news item that you feed me and you think I'll like. What I want is to talk to you. And so I think that is going to happen in the next couple years, and a lot of companies are going to do very well. I think the OpenAI buying the Johnny Ive company, designer of the phone to kill the phone, is a real story that's going to work. And I hope to use the phone and the iPad and the screen less while maybe interacting with technology an equal amount. Or so I maybe the what do you do in a plague? The next plague comes in and kills it. So I'm saying AI may be that to social media.
All right, you were laughing, though.
Oh, I just want to say like a small example though. Like, I guess I'm like the token optimist on this panel. Like, but I just want to give an example of a person who is, I would say, the opposite, Lynn, of what you're describing with social media, who is our moderator, Vicky, who has been very successful because of the advent of social media. Like, there are people who are like, there's so many really young, influential people, and they're often using social media to use their voice in a way that's way more leveraged than when we were in high school. And so I think there's just an opportunity set for young people and for everyone here to think about like, okay, well, things are gonna change a lot. How do I be like Vicky for Instagram or for TikTok or whatever platforms you use? Because I think you clearly saw an opportunity, you took advantage of it, you grasped it, and then you leverage yourself up into being really influential. We just had like a conversation about like something that you said online, you guys haven't met, but you're like, oh, that was really impactful for me. Like, that's super cool. I think there's, like, to me, that's like the promise of these platforms and like individuals, like our moderator here, who's crushing it. Let's give her a round of applause just for crushing it in life. Yay.
Thanks, guys. I think we're hearing we're about 75% of the different topics. This is a real interesting topic about creativity and content creation. So generative AI has been all the talk recently. And the 2 headlines I sort of want to lead with today are an AI-generated band got 1 million plays on Spotify, and nobody knew that it was AI-generated music. On the other hand, there's another headline from HackerNoon: technology is killing creativity. How as humans, we've always prided ourselves on telling stories, on making music, on making art. And the art that we create as humans, it has a sort of purpose. It talks this full setting. It has an intended audience, or it has a message that it's conveying. Generative AI is able to produce perfect replicas of work, but without that meaning behind it. So want to hear from you guys as content creators, as Ling and David, as people who run publishing platforms. You guys have writers submitting to you. Stephen, you write your stand-up comedy. How do you think, first of all, about this, and then how you think AI can be used to either enhance creativity or how you're using it in your process? So let's talk about this first.
I haven't listened to these guys, but I have no doubt that there will come a future where we have to finally accept the fact that some AI is just simply good. Like some AI content is just, right? It's just simply good. Like objectively, this is great. Like be it a picture or music or even like writing a joke or whatever you think of as art, there has to come away. And maybe it's there already, maybe not. No mic on tape. The question, though, to go back to the very original question of what makes us human. In our pre-panel meeting, I was asking Stephen about his stand-up comedy routine, and I was like, hey, what about humor? Like, what do you think makes a joke good? And I think at that time he was still thinking, oh, I was just going to talk about AI agents or something, but turns out you're asking me about humor. So I want to hear your answer again about what actually makes stand-up comedy, right? Like, is it about jokes? Is it about like, wow, like, look at this joke. It's so funny, ha, ha, ha. Like, what is it?
Ha ha ha.
That's actually how you do it. Actually, yeah. This is so funny, ha ha ha, and then everyone just laughs. Well, actually, it's really interesting. Like, so I do like stand-up comedy with this group Saigon Theo, which is like an awesome group of comedians here who are really talented. And one of the things that's so funny about stand-up comedy is that you can say one. Like this has happened to me so many times. One day I'll say one joke, people love that shit. They're laughing so hard. Next day I say a joke, no one laughs. I fucking suck. And that happens all the time. And why does that happen? It's because doing stand-up comedy, I'll just talk about stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is not about like being a like thrower, like tamming. Like you're not just throwing jokes at people. What you're really doing is you're creating a connection between the person speaking and the audience. You're just having a conversation. Like the top comedian in Vietnam is this guy, Chong Phung Nam. Phung Nam is funny, but if you actually listen to his content, it's interesting and thoughtful, but what he's really good at is about creating a connection between everyone who's listening and his experience. And so I think that AI is going to be really good at like tapping, at like creating jokes that you throw out to the audience. But the ability to connect with people and to have that shared experience of like, hey, you've done this thing, I've done this thing, and to be there really live, stand-up comedy is really a live thing. I think that's not going to disappear. So I think, yeah. So in general, I'm like relatively confident about the future of creativity. I do think that if all your content is being really hot, like if you're like a hot girl or like a hot boy, I think actually you're in danger. That it is not a good time to be a hot girl. Okay, that's why I haven't been a hot girl. But really, I think it's not, because if you go on TikTok, Instagram, there's like, I think AI, like, because you don't have a emotional connection with that hot girl. They're just hot. I mean, maybe that you do, but I don't know. Certainly I do not. So, like, I think more and more content's gonna be more about who you are as a person, your narrative, your identity, and less about like what I provide to you, because AI will be able to do that quite well. No. Passing to hot girl, Andrew, please.
So what's the difference between an original painting by a Picasso compared to the copy that a good artist down the street made a copy of? And the difference is a whole lot of money, right? But the next question would be, are you willing to spend, $200 on a fake Rolex, or even a street side Rolex that you hoped was real but turned out to not be real, compared to saving up a lifetime to buy a real Rolex? The authentic thing makes you feel good, but the copy serves a very good purpose. It fulfills the need for a lot of the masses. I like how that looks, so I will buy that print and put it in my home. That's different than me investing in a Picasso. Very, very different. So when we're talking about this, I'm actually a musician as well, and I do a little bit of writing. So when you compare the technologies, writing code versus the musician side of Andrew, AI to help me write code, no problem. No problem, all right? But AI taking away my opportunity to do things in music, now you've pissed me off, right? Because the writing means something a lot to me. And so if everybody else can be as good as or better than me without any effort, that kind of really upsets me, right?
So I don't have much music ability, but I'm a solid writer, and so I like to write little songs with my daughter, and I end up loving these music apps because we spend 30 minutes going back and forth on these lyrics, and then instantly we have professional grade music to them that we can now play in the house for the next 4 hours. So
It's actually pretty good. Like,
it is good. She's my wife. She has to say that. But in that way, I find it really fun of like scaling yourself. In my case, myself is able to write poetry and lyrics, and myself is not able to do anything with a guitar other than drop it. So it's fun when I can scale up myself with the technology, even though they're being sued for copyright infringement. And when can you copyright a chord? Can you copyright a progression? Did you take this from AC/DC? It's a very gray area where if you're making something decent, you did copy part of it from somebody.
it's kind of like what you said about how there will be a new generation, a new group of people coming up with completely novel use case for AI. So I think in terms of the meaning of art and beauty, like there might be a new species of, let's call it whatever, like AI art or, something more poetic, where we will be able to, you know what? I actually do have an example. It's on TikTok, and it's spaghetti something. Basically, it's Italian AI that making funny examples of like meatballs with like different characters, and it's like so funny. It's nothing like we have ever seen before. So just on TikTok, just type in Italian meatball AI, something like that, and then you'll be able to see this kind of extremely weird, like new genre of art. So I think I actually have seen it once or twice. But in terms of, like, I so agree with you in terms of what makes artists great is not the ability to actually technically create the art. It's, my dad is a violinist, and he's a people's artist of Vietnam, pretty good artist. There's only 300 artists that come to that level. And he told me consistently his number one skill is the ability to play the room and not the instrument. So it's very different. If you can create that electricity and that synergy and that appeal wherever you go, and like you can transfer that to different domain expertise as well. It doesn't have to be ability to connect with the live audience. Whatever artists or domains that you can think of, what is the one main thing that make you good at that thing? Like think again on principle thinking. Keep that main thing the main thing. Like Stephen Covey of Seven Habits of Highly Effective People like to say, right? Keep the main thing the main thing. What is actually the main thing that makes you good at your job? When I hire a coder to HackerNoon, and we've been hiring, I guess, for 10 years now, 100 people plus. I'm not really hiring someone who can code. I'm hiring someone with a low ego. I'm hiring someone who can pivot and make and iterate on the fly, and I'm hiring someone who can solve problems. So it's actually not a coder and an engineer per se that I'm hiring. I'm hiring those people that can fit perfectly into the culture of the team. So if you can solve problem, if you can pivot, if you can iterate, and if you can so do all of those things, maybe you don't code anymore, but you can tell the AI, this is what I want to do, then I think you still have a job.